Episode 2 of Married at First Sight UK just dropped, and Grace and Ashley's wedding disaster has officially become one of the most uncomfortable matches in the show's history. What started as a simple case of no physical attraction has exploded into a full-blown clash of values that left Grace in tears and threatening to quit the experiment altogether. We're talking about a bride who went from being disappointed at the altar to being absolutely horrified by her new husband's views on women and relationships. The whole thing was so painful to watch that even viewers at home were cringing at how badly these two are mismatched. This isn't just about not fancying someone. This is about fundamental differences in beliefs that make you wonder how the experts could have gotten it so wrong. Let's break down exactly what happened during this wedding from hell and why Grace's reaction was so extreme. Right from the moment Grace laid eyes on Ashley at the altar, you could tell this wasn't going to be the fairy tale wedding she'd hoped for. Grace has been completely honest about her reaction, admitting to producers that she felt absolutely no instant spark when she saw her new husband.
I'm feeling no instant spark.
This wasn't just nerves. This was a complete lack of any romantic connection from the very first second. Grace told the cameras straight up that Ashley wasn't her type, and unlike some contestants who try to sugarcoat their disappointment, she was brutally honest about how she was feeling. The ceremony itself was awkward enough, but things got even worse when it came time for their first kiss as husband and wife. Instead of going in for a proper kiss, Grace offered Ashley her cheek, which is basically the universal sign for, "I'm not interested, but I'm trying to be polite about it." This wasn't a shy bride moment. This was a clear rejection that everyone watching could see. Ashley seemed to understand what was happening and later admitted that he saw it as a knockback. The poor guy was probably hoping that maybe Grace was just overwhelmed and needed time to warm up to him, but that cheek kiss was a clear signal that she wasn't feeling any romantic connection.
I can offer a cheek.
If Grace thought the ceremony was rough, the reception was about to become a complete nightmare. What started as a lack of physical attraction was about to become something much worse when Ashley's views on women and relationships came to light. Grace's friends started asking Ashley some questions about his beliefs and values. This is pretty normal wedding reception conversation, but Ashley's answers were about to shock everyone at that table. When Grace's friends asked Ashley about feminism, his response was absolutely brutal. He declared that he was 100% no, a feminist, which would have been bad enough on its own. But then he went further and explained his belief in traditional gender roles, specifically that the man should be the breadwinner in the relationship. Now, everyone's entitled to their own views, but Ashley clearly had no idea who he was talking to. Grace is a strong, independent woman who works in healthcare and has built her own career. She's also someone who clearly identifies as a feminist and believes in equality between men and women. You could see Grace's face change completely when she heard Ashley's views. This wasn't just disappointment about not being attracted to him. This was genuine horror at discovering that her new husband held beliefs that were completely opposite to everything she stood for. Grace looked absolutely shocked and disgusted by what she was hearing, and you could tell that any tiny chance this marriage might have had just went out the window. This wasn't about compromise or finding middle ground. These were fundamental differences in how they viewed women, relationships, and equality. What happened next was probably one of the most dramatic moments we've seen on Married at First Sight UK. Grace completely broke down in tears after hearing about Ashley's traditional views on gender roles. This wasn't just crying because she was disappointed. This was a full emotional meltdown from someone who felt completely trapped in an impossible situation. Grace was sobbing because she realized she'd been matched with someone whose values were completely opposite to her own, and there was no way to fix that kind of fundamental disagreement. But the crying was just the beginning of Grace's breakdown. After getting emotional, she actually got up and started walking away from the production crew, telling them, "I don't want to do this, sorry. I can't." This is something we almost never see on reality TV because contestants usually stick it out no matter how bad things get. Grace was so overwhelmed that she was actively trying to quit the experiment right there at her own wedding reception. The core issue between Grace and Ashley isn't really about physical attraction, although that's certainly part of it. The real problem is that they have completely opposite views on some of the most fundamental aspects of relationships and gender equality. Grace is a modern, independent woman who believes in feminism and equality between partners. Ashley, on the other hand, believes in traditional gender roles where the man is the breadwinner and presumably the head of the household. These aren't the kind of differences that couples can usually work through with communication and compromise. When someone says they're 100% no, a feminist to someone who strongly identifies as a feminist, you're looking at a fundamental incompatibility that goes to the core of who they are as people. Grace probably felt like Ashley's views were not just different from hers, but actually offensive and disrespectful to everything she believes in. The timing of this revelation made everything worse. Grace was already struggling with not being attracted to Ashley, and then to discover that his values were completely opposite to hers must have felt like the final nail in the coffin. It's one thing to not fancy someone, but think you might be able to build a connection based on shared values and interests. It's completely different when you realize that the person you've just married holds beliefs that you find fundamentally wrong. Throughout all of this drama, Ashley has remained surprisingly optimistic, though he's clearly aware that Grace isn't feeling the same way about him. He acknowledged that the cheek kiss was a knockback and seemed to understand that Grace wasn't immediately attracted to him, but he appeared to be hoping that things might improve over time. Ashley probably thought that if he could just show Grace his personality and his good intentions, she might warm up to him eventually. Unfortunately for Ashley, his comments about feminism and traditional gender roles probably destroyed any chance he might have had. Even if Grace had been willing to give him a chance despite not being physically attracted to him, his views on women and relationships were clearly a deal breaker for her. Ashley seems like he genuinely wants to make the marriage work, but he's completely misread what kind of woman Grace is and what she's looking for in a partner. Looking at everything that happened during their wedding day, it's hard to see how Grace and Ashley can possibly make this marriage work. The combination of no physical attraction and completely opposite values on feminism and gender roles seems like an insurmountable obstacle. Grace's emotional breakdown and attempt to quit the show suggests that she's already reached her breaking point, and they haven't even made it to the honeymoon yet. The experts clearly got this match completely wrong, and both Grace and Ashley are paying the price for it. This might go down as one of the worst matches in Married at First Sight UK history, with fundamental incompatibilities that seem impossible to overcome through any amount of expert guidance or relationship counselling sessions during the experiment process ahead of them both going forward together now.